Hello Internet, I'm Jackie Fox, and today, as we in America rapidly approach our election, it's time to take a look at Russian influence campaigns again. Now, we previously talked about Doppelganger when they were exposed by OpenAI as using their AI for operations and especially influence campaigns online. Now, this only gave us a bit of a look into their operation, and now that the government is coming down on Doppelganger themselves, we have a lot more information about them and their schemes and their campaigns. Now, my previous video was about a bunch of different countries, but mostly Israel's influence campaigns, and these continue to this day and are still important. And one of the points I was trying to make in that video is that while a lot of these campaigns do affect a lot of people, you really only have to influence one person for certain campaigns for things to really work out in your favor. For instance, there was an example where the governor of California was forced to reconsider a nuclear policy after an army of online bots relentlessly attacked him until he changed his decision. This was a team of operatives working with and out of Israel in many ways. So when we look at this, we want to ask ourselves who is being influenced and how. And one of the first ways that it has been uncovered that the US is being influenced, and the world really is being influenced by Russian operations, is through YouTube. Recently, it was discovered that Russia today has been funneling money through a few intermediaries, ending up at Tenet Media, a company owned by Lauren Chin and I believe her husband, who is a right-wing influencer that we're going to talk about a little bit more in this episode. In this case, they only had to influence a couple of people, and really, these people did all the work for them. People like Lauren Chin were directly working as operatives of the Russian government as they contracted all of these content creators to make influential videos for them, framing Ukraine in a bad light specifically. That was as we checked in on them around a couple months ago, they were mainly focused on changing the opinions on Ukraine in America. They wanted to cut off our funding by getting the American people to stop supporting the war. And the content creators they were supporting were doing a good job of this, perhaps unwittingly, but they were taking large amounts of money without asking the proper questions. The most good outcome for them, the most positive thing that you could possibly say, given all the evidence that we have about these specific influencers and content creators, is that they were incredibly, enthusiastically willing, useful idiots, if nothing more serious than that. According to NPR, federal officials have accused Russia of using unwitting right-wing American influencers on its quest to spread Kremlin propaganda ahead of the 2024 presidential election. On Wednesday, the Justice Department charged 2 employees of RT, the Russian state media broadcaster, in a scheme to secretly fund and direct the production of social media videos that racked up millions of views. RT staffers named in the indictment as Konstantin Kalishnikov and Elena Afanasyeva, I guess, have been charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering and conspiracy to violate Foreign Agents Registration Act. They're accused of funneling nearly $10 million to an unnamed Tennessee company that contracted with online influencers with big audiences. Now, it has been determined that this unnamed company, which wasn't named in the indictment, has later been determined to be Tenet Media, because it matches the details from the indictment, including the website description, a network of heterodox commentators that focus on Western political and cultural issues. This was founded in 2022 by Lauren Chin, a conservative YouTuber, and her husband Liam Donovan, whose X profile describes him as the president of Tenet Media. Chin hosts a show, or at least she hosted a show, on Glenn Beck's God, I just moved that L all the way over a word. On Glenn Beck's Blaze TV, and is a contributor to right-wing activist group Turning Point USA. And she also wrote opinion pieces for RT in 2021 and 2022, which is probably the point where they noticed her and started funneling her money. According to the indictment, the Tennessee company's founders worked with Kalishnikov and Afansieva, whom they knew were Russian, to recruit influencers to make videos that were published across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and X. The indictment says nearly 2,000 YouTube videos amassed more than 16 million views, which tracks with the public statistics on Tenet Media's YouTube channel. Now, they were sponsoring these videos, so this is just the views that they received on the Tenet Media channel, which was honestly pretty unimpressive. 2,000 videos and 16 million views isn't the most views per video, especially compared to the amount of views they were getting on each of these people's home pages across those 4 platforms. So the views here are actually considerably higher than this article represents when you consider that. Wait, hold on. Current Affairs, Stephen Prager, that's funny. They found a Prager. Not the Prager you're thinking about, though. Current Affairs is Nathan J. Robinson's magazine. Earlier this month, the Department of Justice charged 2 employees of the Russian state channel RT with illegally pouring nearly $10 million into a Tennessee company, Tenet Media. The company, founded by now former Blaze TV personality Lauren Chin and her husband, had 6 right-wing YouTubers on its payroll. Among them were personalities like Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, Lauren Southern, in exchange for large sums of money, who unwittingly agreed to spout propaganda from a Russian state-controlled media to more than 6 million YouTube subscribers. So they say 16 million views, but each one of these 2,000 videos was also published to those subscribers as well. So, 16 is really, really lowballing this. As an example, although ISIS took credit for a terrorist attack at a Moscow concert hall, the Russians requested that their influencers blame Ukraine for the attack instead, to which commentator 3 in the indictment said he would be happy to cover it. At another point, a Tenet producer was sent a video produced by Tucker Carlson in which he marvels at the abundance of food within a Russian supermarket and says it will radicalize you against your leaders. Even though a Tenet producer described the video as overt shilling, they posted it anyways, and Johnson boosted it on his social media feed. Okay, no, it looks like Benny Johnson has essentially confirmed that he was a part of this, so he is not out of this. So if you're wondering how much money these guys were taking for shilling out, Rubin received $400,000 a month for 16 videos, plus a performance bonus and a $100,000 signing bonus for a series in which Rubin commented on dumb internet clips that often received roughly 1,000 views per episode. Tenet also proved lucrative for Poole, who made $100,000 per episode for a weekly show he hosted, according to prosecutors. The same month that Tenet launched, Poole purchased a skate park in Martinsburg, West Virginia, as well as significant real estate purchases in the same area. Rubin, Poole, and Johnson all act scandalized to learn that they've been receiving money from a foreign power. But according to a CNN report earlier this week, none of them have offered to give any of that money back, even though they are all quite wealthy. The obvious conclusion to draw is no matter what they say, these people simply have no principles and are willing to say whatever they think will get them paid. Lots of right-wing media outlets would not exist if they did not provide value for the billionaires that fund them. The New York Post is Exhibit A. It's a catastrophic money pit that has been estimated to lose Rupert Murdoch's News Corp anywhere from $50 to $110 million per year. But as Michael Tomasky wrote earlier in this year for The New Republic, it's worth every penny. It gives him power. The Post editors know how to use its front page and news pages to shape discourse. Ditto for dozens of other failing papers and TV stations being gobbled up by fellow billionaire David Smith, who owns Sinclair Podcasting and has turned once proud papers like the Baltimore Sun into ones that scaremonger about immigrants and call the transgender movement a cancer. PolitiFact also did an analysis of these content creators and discovered that in the past year, Each creator made or amplified many inaccurate claims, which is not surprising to anyone looking at these guys, but just interesting to know that they've been doing the work. The other two content creators who we haven't mentioned yet were listed on Tenet Media's website as Taylor Hansen and Matt Christensen as well. So those are the final two for the 6. These creators collectively have more than 7 million subscribers on X, and all 6 of them are blue check X subscriber accounts, which means that the site algorithm sometimes promotes their posts and replies. And by sometimes, anybody who's used X says pretty often. The site is drowning in blue check pseudo ads for these type of things, which means that in an indirect and rather laundered sort of way, X as a platform has been structurally amplifying Russian propaganda for money. Money that is likely being paid from money that was paid to them indirectly by Russians. The Russians are fueling X's return to relevance with indirect and not entirely large sums of money, at least for these 6 content creators. But you also note that many of these pieces of media that were paid for by Tenet Media have also been shared by the owner of X, Elon Musk, as well. So Elon Musk and X are really deeply ingrained in this as useful idiots who didn't even get a real paycheck. These influencers also mostly possess verification badges on YouTube and Meta, which means that people interacting with their content might afford them a certain amount of credibility to these creators' claims. There is a certain appeal to authority with the verification process. So if you've been wondering, here's a list of some of the false claims that have been pushed by these creators. Not an all-inclusive list, but they do include the false claim that conservative commentator Tucker Carlson was put on a Ukrainian hit list for interviewing Russian President Vladimir Putin, the false claim that transgender people have a mental disorder, inaccurate claims about Joe Biden's behavior on January 6th D-Day and June 6th D-Day anniversary event, including evidence-free claims that Biden had soiled himself or had sat on an invisible chair. Russian state-owned news operation RT and the defendants co-opted online commentators by funneling them nearly $10 million. If it's true that these influencers maintained editorial control, then they were essentially paid to do what they were already doing. A great deal for the influencers, though not necessarily for their paymasters. Though their social impact, though divisive, is just a small part of the vast ecosystem of right-wing discourse that persists with or without Russian involvement. So let's look at some more debunked narratives from some of these 6 content creators, starting with Benny Johnson. So Benny Johnson, in a February Tenet Media video, claimed that special counsel Robert Hur had declared Biden couldn't be prosecuted for allegedly mishandling classified documents because Hur said Biden doesn't have the mental capacity to be prosecuted. That characterization was inaccurate. In his report, Hur didn't say that Biden was incompetent to stand trial. In February, Johnson said Ukraine apparently hired an assassin to kill conservative commentator Tucker Carlson for daring to interview Putin, and repeated the claim that Carlson was put on a Ukrainian hit list for his Putin interview. We rated false the claim that Carlson was put on a Ukrainian hit list. The Carlson assassination attempt claim was also fact-checked and reported false by Newsweek and Voice of America, a part of the U.S. government's international media network. In a March Tenet Media video, Johnson also amplified a baseless conspiracy theory that Biden had used hard drugs to improve his performance during his State of the Union address. He also repeatedly posted on X in April criticizing U.S. lawmakers who supported aid to Ukraine. Politicians are waving Ukraine flags in the halls of Congress and chanting Ukraine as they vote to send another $60 billion overseas. Insane. As a sample of some of the things that he posted. Next up, we have Tim Pool. So here's some of the debunked narratives he promoted. In December of 2023, Pool repeated a claim we've rated false when he wrote, "If you are trans, you have a mental disorder." Medical experts today widely agree that being transgender is not a medical health disorder. On June 6th, Poole amplified inaccurate claims about Biden's behavior at a D-Day anniversary event, repeatedly claiming without evidence that Biden had soiled himself. Poole has repeatedly also said Ukraine is our enemy, including at least once in an August 14th X post. After the indictment was released, social media users circulated a clip of Poole making an impassioned anti-Ukraine rant.
This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. They are expanding this war. Now, don't get me wrong. I know you've got criminal elements of the U.S. government pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do. Ukraine is now accused, a German warrant issued for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, triggering this conflict. Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
Dave Rubin, next up. So what kind of false news is he promoting? On June 6th, Rubin amplified the same misleading claims about Biden's D-Day behavior on his anniversary event in Normandy, France. In July's second video, Rubin shared an X post claim that CNN's Donna Bash was signaling to Biden during the June 27th debate between Biden and Trump. Agency France Press Fact Check reported that these claims were false. Bash was signaling to Trump that it was not his turn, and her other co-moderator was moving on to the next question. Rubin said much of his work with Tenet Media ended months before the indictment. The most recent video we found that featured Rubin on Tenet Media's Rumble channel was dated May 15th, a little over 3 months before the indictment. So he may have actually noticed, finally developed a conscience about these things. But I highly doubt it. Lauren Southern, next up. In a February Tenet Media video, Southern amplified the narrative that a Canadian law proposed as a way to counter online hate could lead to lifelong prison sentences for hate speech. Logically, Facts reported that such claims are misleading because the online harms bill would introduce life imprisonment as a penalty for promoting genocide, not any type of hateful speech. Although, I mean, that's a type of hateful speech, but whatever. Similarly, I mean, look, you know, not all hate speech is genocide. They are separate things. I get it. Similarly, AAP Fact Check reported that merely offending others online cannot be punished with a life sentence under the proposed legislation. But you got to be asking yourself, why would it benefit a person to claim that, you know, that clearly has read this, probably knows more about this than I do, right? I don't know much about Canadian law. I know even less about proposed Canadian law. So she knows this better than I do, I would assume. So why is she intentionally, instead of telling you that genocide would get you a life sentence, why is she intentionally telling you it's hate speech? Even if you consider genocide a form of hate speech, why would you say hate speech instead of genocide, unless you're trying to mislead people? In August, Southern reposted a pants on fire claim that President Kamala Harris's campaign used an artificial intelligence to create images of a crowd at a Michigan campaign rally. Southern urged caution but still amplified the narrative, saying, "I think a lot of the Kamala team AI'd this photo claims have been false. Need more info, though." She's the only woman listed among Tenet Media's talent. Southern and Chen, a Tenet Media founder who is also from Canada, were friends and occasional collaborators, CBC reported. NBC reported in a now-deleted video, Southern said she opted to work for Tenet because I know the people running it, and I know they're actually going to let me speak my mind. So she actually knew Chen pretty well. Seems like the Laurens might have known a little bit more, right? You know, we know that Lauren Chen knew who she was working with. If Southern was her friend, what do you think the odds are that she, at some point, found out or was told where this money was coming from? And, you know, if this was your friend, why wouldn't you tell them? Matt Christensen. All right. In a March Tenet Media video, Christensen hosted a man who advocates for Texas to secede from the United States. Interestingly enough, going back about, oh my God, six 7 years on this channel, when I was covering the Mueller indictment, or the Mueller report. When I was covering the Mueller report, Texit, as well as Calexit and some others, were some of the many ways that Russians were trying to literally promote division within the United States by chipping away at its largest states. PolitiFact, the Texas Tribune, and USA Today are among news organizations who have rebutted false claims that Texas could legally secede from the Union. Christensen also said in the title of a May Tenet media video that migrant crime is surging, citing a Chicago Tribune report that migrant arrests had increased. However, the report itself said that migrants do not appear to have fueled a crime wave, and other outlets, including the Associated Press and KPBS, a San Diego public radio station, have reported that there is no evidence for a spike in crime perpetrated by migrants. It seems that Christensen is also a longtime friend of Chin, which is how he got such a sweet deal, but also, again, makes me kind of wonder how much he actually knew about this and when. Taylor Hanson. Hanson's Tenet media videos primarily featured man-on-the-street style interviews, but he still promoted plenty of false claims online. On August 5th, Hanson reposted an X-post that falsely claimed the Washington Post erroneously published an opinion article headline that declared a person who had not yet been announced was the perfect VP choice for Harris. The Post and other news outlets reported that it was a fake image. After a gunman attempted to assassinate Donald Trump during a Pennsylvania campaign rally, Hanson shared a video clip of a Secret Service agent struggling to holster a firearm and said, "Women should not be allowed to be Secret Service agents. You cannot change my mind on this." Women have been a part of the Secret Service since 1971. Several groups advocating for more women in law enforcement condemned such rhetoric and called attacks on gender equity initiatives disingenuous distractions aiming to sow division. In another X post after the July 13th shooting, Hanson posted, "Remember when Biden said it's time to put Trump in a bullseye?" This was a nod to July 8th Biden remarks reported by CNN. "We're done talking about the debate," Biden said. "It's time to put Trump in the bullseye. We can't go another day, without explaining what he's doing, and we have to go after him." Some pointed to the quote to claim that Biden ordered the attack on Trump, but there has never been any evidence of that found. On September 6th, Hanson said on X that he'd been permanently banned from YouTube, but the company and a lot of investigations that I've seen people do on, what his channel says, what his videos say, and how this would work, dispute those claims. It seems like he took down his whole channel instead so that there would be less evidence. I don't know that that's going to work very well because the videos they paid you for, they posted on their channel. You can't really delete those. Also in March, Hanson said that Biden's State of the Union address sounded a lot like a declaration of war against Russia and American citizens. Before we move on to Doppelganger, let's look just a little bit more deeply at Lauren Chin. Chin, now 30 years old, began her public career around 2016 and has since managed to build remarkably diverse ties across the right-wing spectrum. According to conservative media, white nationalists like Richard Spencer, like-minded podcasters, paleo-conservatives, comedians turned aggrieved libertarians, and many others. She even dipped her toe into lifestyle influencing, peddling both ivermectin and a chintzy soap line she co-owned with her mother. She appeared as a commentator on the Blaze's TV channel, as a contributor for conservative activist group Turning Point USA, made appearances on Fox News, One American News, Newsmax, and in videos from The Daily Wire, Rebel Media, and PragerU. With a young daughter in a home in Nashville that she shared with her husband Liam Donovan, who served as president of their video-making company Tenet Media, it appeared to be paying off. Little did anyone know that all of this money was coming from Russia. Well, I guess she knew, and he knew, and maybe Matt and Lauren also knew, but who knew? alleged. So this brings us to Doppelganger, because we've got a new report out from a tech company on this type of work, and this time it's Microsoft. So Microsoft has also a lot of information on what Russia is doing, and since it's not just knowledge of what they're doing with AI, this is a lot broader. Now, so there was a previous Microsoft report on how the Olympics are now being targeted through online AI-based disinformation campaign. You can see some of the stuff on the screen here. There was even a fake documentary. So their goals here are defaming the IOC, but also to spread fear and deter spectators from attending the games using threats of violence. There is a couple of things here. A video purporting to be from Brussels-based media company Euronews that praised Parisian were buying property insurance in anticipation of terrorism. Fake video to come from French broadcaster France 24 that claimed 24% of tickets for the game had been returned due to fears of terrorism. And fake video press releases were produced posing as coming from the American Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, and the French General Directorate for Internal Security, DGSI, warning potential attendees to stay away from the Paris 2024 Olympics due to alleged risk of a terrorist attack. So we had covered a lot of other things that they're doing. Again, it's been a through line that Doppelganger especially is using their just army of fake online bot accounts to try to push pro-Russia, or maybe even more directly anti-Ukrainian sentiment online. But for whatever reason, they're mad at Paris too, and they were trying to fuck up the Olympic Games. And then after that, they rapidly shifted to the US election. And it seems like they shifted to the US election around the time that Harris took the lead, because they hadn't been particularly afraid of Biden. They had been doing some stuff against Biden, but they figured Trump would do the heavy lifting there, essentially. But seeing Harris come in and seeing Trump start to flounder in that comparison, they once again offered their help. Since late August, Russian threat actors have been disseminating fabricated videos designed to sow discord and spread disinformation about the new Democratic nominee, Vice President Harris. Some of them have millions of views. One deepfake claims that Harris paralyzed a girl in a hit-and-run accident that happened in 2011. The fabrication was uploaded to a fake news website masquerading as a local San Francisco media outlet. The website was created only a few days beforehand. Another inauthentic video depicts an attack on a Donald Trump rally attendee by alleged Harris supporters, which also never happened. The goal was to inflame political divides by stirring racial and political tensions. Both clips received millions of views. Microsoft's new report attributes them to a Kremlin-aligned troll farm labeled Storm 1516. Another threat actor, Storm 1679, better known as Doppelganger, posted two fake videos. One of them, with more than 100,000 views on X, leveraged a divisive social issue regarding sex change operations and depicted a fake New York City billboard advancing false claims about Harris's policies. This marks a pivot from the previous activity of these adversaries. During summer, Doppelganger was busy spreading lies about the 2024 Paris Olympic Games, while Storm 1516 was still denigrating President Joe Biden. In the past 2 months, Microsoft has observed a noticeable shift in Russian influence operation tactics, reflecting the changing U.S. political environment. Specifically, we have observed Russia pivot towards the Harris Walls campaign as their target, the report reads. Cyber News already reported a sharp increase in the number of blocked YouTube channels linked to Russian influence operations. But again, I think Tenet Media got taken down recently as a part of this, I think. But as far as I know, other than the one that got canceled, not taken down, none of the 6 content creators we talked about earlier have been blocked yet, but they could be. It would be some really interesting karma for them. It doesn't seem like they have to give the money back, so any amount of karma would be nice here. As in the two previous campaigns, MTAC observes a synchronized shift by all Russian influence actors to focus on undermining the Democratic candidate in the final days before the election. One of the Russian-affiliated influence actors, Volga's Flood, Storm 1841, aka Rybar, operates covert social media channels targeting U.S. audiences to spread lies. It's among the leading Russian actors using AI to scale its operations beyond the capabilities of its teams. Simultaneously, MTAC anticipates Iranian threat actors joining the malicious activity of inciting confusion, fear, and intimidation among voters in swing states. As we inch closer to the election, we should expect Russian actors to continue to use cyber proxies and hacktivist groups to amplify their messages through media websites and social channels geared to spread divisive political content, staged videos, and AI-enhanced propaganda, they said. Russia and Iran are not the only nation-states trying to influence the election. A Chinese-linked actor, Storm 1852, was observed producing short-form video content that criticizes the Biden and the Harris administration, masquerading as conservative U.S. voters voting for Trump. A handful of accounts also create anti-Trump content and use political slogans associated with American progressive politics. This threat actor doesn't appear interested in supporting a political candidate. Rather, its intent is likely to seed doubt and confusion among American voters. Russia and Iran have undertaken cyber influence operations headed into the 2024 presidential election. So this is going to be another Microsoft report, but this is specifically the report. We are actually on Microsoft this time. In our last report published August 8th, we detailed how Iranian cyber-enabled influence operations sought to undermine the Republican campaign through targeted hack and leak operations, covert social media personas, and imposter U.S. news sites. This is actually something that Donald Trump had talked about. He tried to blame a couple of things on this and pointed to this specific report. Okay, so moving to the Department of Justice, looking at these things, where they come from. Justice Department disrupts covert Russian government-sponsored foreign malign influence campaign operation targeting audiences in the United States and elsewhere. Influence operation relied on influencers, AI-generated content, paid social media advertisements, and social media accounts to drive internet traffic to cyber-squatted and other domains. The Justice Department announced the ongoing seizure of 32 internet domains used in Russian government-directed foreign malign influence campaigns, colloquially referred to as Doppelganger, in violation of U.S. money laundering and criminal trademark laws. As alleged in an unsealed affidavit, the Russian companies SDA and Struktura and ANO Dialogue, operating under the direction and control of the Russian presidential administration, and particularly the first deputy chief of the staff of the presidential executive office, Sergei Vladinovich Kirienko, used those domains, among others, to covertly spread Russian government propaganda with the aim of reducing international support for Ukraine, bolstering pro-Russian policies and interests, and influencing voters in U.S. and foreign elections, including the U.S. 2024 presidential election. The affidavit describes the perpetrator's own internal strategy and meeting notes, project proposals, and other records obtained during the course of the investigation. Several notable propaganda project proposals directed at the United States included Good Old USA Project. Let's read a bit from this. The current international environment is known for, first and foremost, severe hostility of the U.S. towards Russia. The U.S. has been trying to maintain global leadership by strategically defeating Russia. This desire shapes the financial investment, weapons supply, and efforts to keep the conflict in Ukraine going. In the meantime, key question of U.S. domestic policy remains the same. How justified are these efforts? The further we go, the more politicians state that the U.S. should target their effort towards addressing domestic issues. While the Democrats are still in power, they're trying to maintain the current foreign policy priorities, Republicans in opposition have been criticizing these priorities. It makes sense for Russia to put a maximum effort to ensure that the Republican point of view, first and foremost the opinion of Trump supporters, wins over the U.S. public opinion. This includes provisions on peace in Ukraine in exchange for territories, the need to focus on problems in the U.S. economy, returning troops home from all over the world, etc. The goal and objectives, the number one goal of this is to secure a victory for Republican candidate Trump or one of his current internal party opponents. So, at this point, they didn't care who won. They wanted Trump to win at the time this was written, but they could care less so long as it was a Republican who supported Russia. And it seems like they felt like all of them did. The objectives are to increase the percentage of Americans who believe the U.S. has been doing way too much to support Ukraine to 51%. It was 41% as of late last year. To increase the percentage of Americans who believe that the war has to be ended as soon as possible, even at the cost of territorial concessions on the part of Ukraine, to 53%. I do believe that the conflict should be ended as soon as possible, but I believe in no such scenario where Ukraine should concede any of its territory to Russia. In fact, I think they should get Crimea back, for fuck's sake. You owe them that. But they want to bring that up to 53%. It was at 43% at that same time. So they want to increase both of these statistics by 10%. And since they fall along party lines, they want to get more people interested in the Republicans. But finally, to bring candidate B confidence down to a minimal level of 29%, which was based on 39% previously. So one thing, candidate B here has got to be President Joe Biden, because there wasn't really like a reference confidence rating for Harris. So this whole plan, the good old USA or good old America plan, is designed to take down Joe Biden and elevate Trump or whatever Republican they could get. I mean, again, they think it should be Trump, but they're willing to take anyone who will do what they want and anyone who is not a Democrat, specifically anyone but Joe Biden. The target audiences of this campaign, residents of swing states whose voting results impact the outcomes of elections more than other states. In 2024, such states, according to the New York Times and Siena College, are Nevada, Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Residents of conservative states where traditional values are strong, who will more often vote for candidates of the Republican Party, like Alabama, Kansas, Texas, Wyoming, Louisiana, etc., U.S. citizens of Hispanic descent, American Jews, community of American gamers, users of Reddit and image boards such as 4chan, whom they credit to be the backbone of right-wing trends in the U.S. segment of the internet, and they're not wrong. I mean, this is channels of influence. We intend to use Facebook and Instagram as well as YouTube, X, and Reddit. The resources free from democratic censorship. Oh my God. When you read propaganda like this, it just really highlights how many of their talking points that they're spouting. Like, the good old America project might as well be describing any of those 6 YouTubers' channels and the content they make day by day. No wonder they didn't have to change their content much in order to keep their Russian handlers happy. So this is quite a rabbit hole. That was 12 pages. I could have read a lot more about that. So let's look at the next campaign, the guerrilla media campaign. So the content of the campaign, we'd like to reiterate the United States are no pro-Russian or no pro-Putin mainstream politicians or sufficiently large numbers of influence in voters. There is no point justifying Russia and no one to justify it to. All American politicians and influencers are patriots and supporters of America's supremacy. However, there is a feeling among the Republicans that the president's policies, censorship on social media, and the policies of the Democratic government are encroaching on their rights. They are dissatisfied with the dramatic decline in the standards of living and large expenditures on offensive policy of the United States and Europe and Ukraine. They're afraid of losing the American way of life and the American dream. It's all these sentiments that should be exploited in the course of an information campaign in for the United States. So, these are the topics of the campaign. Once again, this is uncovered Russian intelligence documents, translated into English and redacted. But the redactions are actually incredibly easy to figure out from context. Campaign topics: encroaching universal poverty, record inflation, halting of economic growth, unaffordable prices for food and essential goods. Who's talking about that? Risk of job loss for specifically for white Americans. Jesus. Privileges for people of color, pervert, wow, and the disabled. I'm like, geez, y'all really getting awful Nazi with this. Constant lies of the Democratic administration about the real situation in the country. Threat of crime coming from people of color and immigrants, including immigrants from Ukraine. Oh my God. You can't even flee Ukraine and be safe of Russia. They're trying to influence the countries they're going to hate them. Overspending on foreign policy at the expense and interests of white U.S. citizens. Constant lies to the voters by the Democratic Party in power. Last but not least, America is suffering a defeat despite Trump's efforts. We are being drawn into the war. Our guys will die in Ukraine. Or maybe Biden. Oh yeah, it is Biden. He's beat. That should be easy to remember. Candidate A is Trump. I guess they're all redacted in the same way. Target of the campaign: Republican voters, Trump supporters of traditional family values, white Americans representing the lower middle and middle class. How they're going to get that information out there. It's obvious and essential that only social media can function as sources of information. At the same time, the uncensored dissemination apparently is only possible on Trump something. They redacted a lot there. On Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, we need to create multiple perishable accounts, primarily for the work with comments. Websites, landing pages should serve as the source of information for dissemination and for video content. YouTube accounts with a relatively small number of subscribers and commentators. Usually you get banned after reaching the level of 100,000 subscribers. So that, wow, they're really building these bot accounts up huge. So now let's look at the last campaign, the U.S. Social Media Influencers Network Project. Project goal: to create platforms on U.S. social networks in order to strengthen pro-Russian sentiments among targeted audience in accordance with key performance indicators. The proposal is to create and develop a network of 200 accounts on Twitter, 4 in each of 50 states, 2 active and 2 dormant ones. Active accounts in each state will be maintained on behalf of fictitious individual who actively supports U.S. political party A and represents a community of local activists. The feeds, I think Party A, because I think Party B is, Party A is Republican. The Republican activist donor is kind of the vibe they're going for. The feeds will mainly collect the local news breaks with occasional coverage of federal and international ones. An approximate number of daily publications will be 3 and 4 in one's feed, and 6 and 9 comments in other people's feeds via comments and reposts. Dormant accounts will be maintained far less intensively and used if one of the active accounts is blocked. The outcome is expected that in 2 to 3 months, the total permanent audience of the project will reach 30 to 50,000 subscribers. In 6 months, they're hoping for 100,000 to 200,000, and in a year, they're hoping for more than 1 million subscribers overall. That's what happens if I scroll down too far. I see the original untranslated document. Just in case you were wondering why the Russians are publishing these things in English, they're not. These are translations that I'm reading. The original document looks much like the one you just saw. Doppelganger's foreign malign influence efforts were not directed solely against audiences in the United States. Other targets of the perpetrators' propaganda included Germany, Mexico, and Israel, among others. Doppelganger's influence campaign sought to influence the citizenry of those countries to support Russian government objectives, including by undermining the United States' relationships with these countries. Doppelganger's use of U.S.-based domain names at the direction and control of, for the benefit of, sanctioned persons, including Sergei Vladimirovich Kuryenko, SDA structure, violates the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. As a result, the accompanying payments for Doppelganger's online infrastructure violate federal money laundering laws. In addition, Doppelganger's publication of content on cyber-squatted domains with names and content that mimic legitimate media outlets violates federal criminal trademark laws because those domains feature trademarks registered on the principal register maintained by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. The FBI Philadelphia field office is investigating the case. And this NPR article just mentions both of them. So those are the two new U.S. unsealed indictments. One targeting Doppelganger, the other targeting operators of RT who funneled money in through influencers. And as you can see, this also kind of aligns with the fake influencer program that Russia has been starting through Doppelganger. There's a lot of similarity through these two campaigns and a lot more that we can learn from checking out Microsoft's Threat Assessment Center as well. So just a lot of different sources of cybersecurity information in this one. Just a real deep look at what Russia is currently doing. Because again, just putting posts out there, that was kind of the narrative that people were trying to downplay this. We're making in 2016. It's just posting. But it's so much more than that. I mean, I hope you're starting to see it now. If you didn't see it before you subscribed to this channel, if you aren't subscribed to this channel, you should probably do that. You should also like and ring the bell because I talk about controversial topics and I'm not afraid to use some colorful language if necessary. And for that reason, YouTube likes to restrict the reach of my content. So ring that bell if you want to be sure you see it. Let me know what you think in the comment if you have any questions or any other angles that I should look at or any curiosities here. Be sure to tell me about it in the comments, and on your way down there, check out that link in the description to check out the other parts of the Jackie Fox Media universe, including a podcast version of this show, ways to donate to the channel, and books that I've written that you could purchase as well. I write in kind of fantasy fiction, in more science fiction, and even in kind of near future, like modern cyberpunk. I don't know. We've kind of reached the point of cyberpunk. Reality is now a little bit cyberpunk. You don't have to twist things very far or move very far into the imagined future to reach cyberpunkian dilemma. And I think that's very interesting. If you think that's interesting too, check out my books. The first in that particular series that is set right around the modern age and really dives deep into a lot of these complex issues as it even happens while we sleep. That is available for hardback for only $15 right now. It's a really good deal. I'm not making much off of it, but I want to get this book out there. I think it's a good one. I think it's timely. I think you should read it. And I'm only getting paid $1 to say that if you buy the book. So, it's not much, but it helps, and I just want to get the books out there. So pick one up for yourself, pick one up for a friend who's having a birthday soon, who likes the same kind of stuff. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.